Hey guys, welcome to Chasing Gains Radio episode 16. Today we have an absolutely phenomenal guest which we go through some amazing content. It's very different to what we would normally go through on this show. It's a bit of an extension on what we talked about with Sohee Lee in a previous podcast about the risks of comp prep and developing issues with disordered eating. Now, this isn't going to be applicable to everyone. However, you'll most likely know someone who actually has tendencies which are become to a point where they're borderline obsessive around food, whether it's orthorexia, which is kind of one of the topics that we actually cover, which is kind of the perception of eating only foods that are deemed healthy, which there's no actual correct definition, and it's very specific to each individual person, which we go through about what they perceive as healthy or beneficial, clean, whatever it is. It's talking about only consuming those foods and the risks involved in that. And obviously, if you're working with people like myself who deal predominantly with a lot of people who are doing competition prep, there's a high risk of those people. And kind of almost every week I have a conversation with someone who has either a history of disordered eating or disordered eating tendencies. And a lot of people don't want to necessarily discuss that or go into any detail on that, and it's something that I have to deal with on a weekly basis with potential new clients all of the time. So it's something that definitely needs to be covered, and all the detail behind that. We go into everything about healthy eating habits, what is actually healthy eating, what is a good relationship with food, what's a bad relationship with food, what to avoid getting into those obsessive tendencies around food and exercise and all those kind of things. And we go into a lot of detail about this. Regardless of whether you do comp prep or any kind of thing, this is going to be a great podcast for everyone who actually eats lots of food or enjoys food, whatever it is. Whether someone's looking to lose weight or actually looking at putting on weight because they're at that point where they have disordered eating. So it's got a lot of amazing content in this podcast that we actually go through. So many different topics that we actually cover around food and the importance of having that good relationship with food, and how to be able to develop that as well and improve that over a period of time. So really looking forward to you guys checking out this podcast and giving some feedback. So really looking forward to get into it. Maddie's got an amazing story about how she overcome her issues that she had with food and the relationships that she had with food. She did competition prep in the past and didn't necessarily develop the best relationship. She actually used that as an excuse to be able to have an even more obsessive relationship around her food. That's why she got into competing, which is obviously not optimal moving into comp prep. She just talks about her story and how she overcome that and what she does now to be able to help other people overcome those obsessive tendencies and have that good relationship with food. So we're looking forward to this podcast. Be sure to give some feedback, and if you're on iTunes, be sure to leave a review as well, because that's how we get the Chasing Gains podcast out there even more. So thanks again, guys. Enjoy the podcast. Chasing Gains Radio. The insatiable quest for constant progression. Chasing is the act of pursuing. Gains is the result or positive outcome. Chasing Gains Radio. Here's your host, Cody McAuliffe. So everyone's got kind of their story within the health and fitness industry. Do you mind giving us a little bit about your history, what you've kind of gone through, and a bit about your background as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my journey started a little bit younger when I started to realize that the way I was treated because of my body was different from the way other people were treated because of their bodies. And that really started to stick with me when I would see the way that my long, tall, slender cousins were treated, and I wanted to be looked at like that. I wanted to be seen and admired for my body because it was something I could control.
Yeah.
And as I got older, when I got into probably middle school, I started to I watched this show that was talking about the dangers of eating disorders, but the main character and the girl was like doing it because she felt out of control with her stress and her life, and it just seemed out of balance. So she tried to change her weight to feel more in control. And instead of gaining this warning, I thought, oh, hey, maybe this is something that I can try when I feel stressed and out of control. So once I got into high school, I started to try different techniques for controlling my weight. I stopped eating for a while. I even got into purging a little bit. I never had an official eating disorder during that period, but I was very disordered with my fitness relationship and my food. I would go to the gym and I would try to be on the treadmill for an hour and burn this many calories, and then I'd go home and I try to only eat this many calories to stay under that burn number. And if I accidentally ran a little bit longer than I did the day before, that'd become my new standard. And it was out of fear. It was all fear-based. It was, okay, if I ran this much yesterday, I have to run more today, because if I don't, I'm a failure. And I need to prove to myself I'm worthy, I'm fit, I'm healthy. All the while, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food, a very unhealthy relationship with exercise, and it only got worse. When I went into college, I was introduced to bodybuilding and fitness modeling and the competition lifestyle. And I thought, everyone's experience is different. But for me, I was just in awe of this way that I could be able to still express my control, my need for control. I could still be in control. I could count every macro. I could count every calorie. I could weigh everything. I could work out twice a day. No one would bat an eye if I did all of those strict habits, routines, patterns. I could miss out on social events, drinking, because I really wanted an excuse not to drink so that I could get my abs faster. And to me, it was just like, voila, I have this way I can control my need for control and also look like, the girl on the fitness model magazines. And I wanted that. So I went down that path. And it led me to a very dark place where I had to have some kind of medication before I went to sleep so that I could sleep, or else I'd be awake. I needed digestive aids. I was isolated. My stomach was always upset. I lost my period. My relationships were struggling, were stressed. But the worst thing, besides losing energy and mental clarity, the worst thing was that I was really just not enough to myself. I was never enough, no matter how small I got. Even when I was at what I was told, a 6% body fat, which I don't know how true that was, but even when I was down to that crazy small amount, I was not happy with myself. I was not enough. It wasn't enough, and it was never going to be enough. So that was the darker side. And when I finally came to realization after my second show that I was making all these sacrifices and I was doing it in vain, and I was doing it to hurt myself, not because I loved myself. It wasn't because I was enjoying myself. It was because I wasn't enough. When I finally realized that, I just realized that I couldn't do this anymore. If I were to die, say around that time, tragically, everyone would say around my grave that I was really good at working out and I was really good at clean eating. But besides that, it's like there wasn't much else to me. I was so obsessed and focused and driven on just those things. I wasn't serving the world. I wasn't helping people. I wasn't fulfilling the one life I had been given. So from there on, I made all these changes in my life. I found my self-worth in other places. I set down a completely different path. It's been, I think, about 2.5, maybe 3 years since that last show. And I'm just in a completely different place, and I do everything out of love for my body now, not out of fear or not enoughness or hate or anything like that.
Yeah, okay, awesome. What was, I guess, the biggest, tipping point to get to that point where you thought that you weren't really doing what was healthy for your body?
I think there were a lot of little ones along the way. But the one that comes to mind was specifically that day, that second show, and I went up there. You've competed, you know how the call-outs go. If you get first call-outs, then yay, you're up there. Second call-outs, you're between number 5 to 10 in our group. And I was the second call-outs, and after doing so much work, pushing my body so far, I was starving during that prep. I was very starving from the beginning. I had the worst coaches who were harsh on me, demeaning to me, belittling me, but I fueled on that at the time. I was like, yeah, give me more. Tell me what I need to work on. I need to work on more. Yeah, it was like a drug to me almost. And that second show when I got second call, that's the whole time I thought I would place number one. I was like, I'm gonna get number one. Like I've worked too hard not to get number one. And when I got second calls, just immediately when I was standing up there, I was embarrassed. I was humiliated. I was mad at myself. I kept thinking in my mind, what could I have done better? What did I need to do? Like I shouldn't have even been in that class because I was actually in the tallest girls class and they put my height down incorrectly on purpose because the class I was supposed to be in already had too many people. So I was mad that they did that. It was out of my control. But then something clicked in my mind that I will never have control of what other people do or say or think about me. Just like that, I worked for 6 months to be in this show, and then they just like that could decide that I was in a different class because it would needed to be even. Out of my control, out of my power. The judges, they may have liked brunettes, they may have liked uh, piercings, belly button piercings, tattoos. I didn't have any at the time. I didn't have any of those things. Maybe I couldn't control that either. Maybe they like small boobs, maybe like big boobs, you know? But I couldn't control any of those things. And I just had this moment where I was thinking, I've been trying so hard to change my body so I can control other people's thoughts about me. But why? First of all, I can't control what other people think about me. Second of all, where does it get me? Even if everyone in the world told me, you're perfect, Madeline, you look great, which a lot of people did because I was all over Instagram with my ab shots and this and that, still wasn't enough. Like the proof was in the pudding that I was still unhappy, was still upset. In that moment where I should have been celebrating and happy, I set out to do something, I did it, I was upset, I was mad, I was miserable. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. It was really as simple as that.
Yeah, okay, awesome. In terms of, I guess, getting to that result, do you think it's important for people to, if potentially doing, say, a competition like that, that they have, they make sure that they start with that good relationship with food and training as well beforehand, before even thinking about doing that? Because I find like a lot of people that will come to me generally start with that kind of perception where they think that by doing that they're going to get the perfect body and then feel better about themselves afterwards. Do you think it's important to start beforehand with that good relationship with food and exercise?
Yes, absolutely. If you start with a bad relationship with food and exercise, trust me, it's just going to get worse. If you start with a good relationship, there's even a chance it could get a little bit ruined, a little bit damaged throughout that process because you can start with this is just something I want to do. I want to prove to myself I can set out and do this. It's on my bucket list. Mid competition, you're making some sacrifices and you're realizing, okay, this better be worth it. And then by the end, it's like, this is the day. This is the day I've been waiting for forever. Like, this is the most important day of my life. I better get place number one, or I gotta be at least number three. And then when that doesn't happen, you start looking at your body differently. You're almost a little bit frustrated with your body. You're frustrated with the way you ate, or you didn't work out enough. And then you start to realize that something as simple as moving your body, what should have been fun to begin with, became either a chore or a demand. And then food became can become almost scary. Like, well, I'm only supposed to eat these 6 foods. If I eat anything outside of it, what's going to happen to my body? So you could start with a very healthy mindset and lose that in the process because you'll forget food is nourishment. Instead, you'll start to think food is a mechanism for changing your body fat percentages. And that shift can happen very quickly, and you may not realize it, but you certainly realize it towards the end of the competition prep or afterwards when you're trying to get back on track with eating either intuitively or eating just however your body desires, because you'll forget what that relationship looks like and you'll have to relearn it. So definitely start with an amazing relationship. If you do have such a good relationship with food and movement, you may not even want to do that. Like your motive, you really need to think about what's your motive for doing something like that, to prove to yourself, to prove to other people. Definitely take time to think about why you want to do that in the first place.
Yeah, totally agree. How would you define a good relationship with food and exercise?
I would say that a good relationship with food and exercise means that you can change what you do, how you eat on a day-to-day basis, and there's no consequence. So a bad relationship with exercise looks like if I don't work out today, Then I can't go out with my friends tonight for happy hour. Then I can't watch that favorite show I want to watch. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. A good relationship with exercise means, sure, I love to run, or I love to bike, or I love to swim, but I don't have time today. I got this project to work on. I got to go out and see my friends. I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow, the next day, whenever the next opportunity arises. And there's no consequence. There's no, if I don't do it, then this happens. And the same with food. Maybe in your mind, this would be a poor relationship with food. It would be, if I eat this piece of pizza, then tomorrow morning I have to eat super strict. That is poor relationship with food, because your body craves different things at different times for different reasons. So you don't want to go into eating pizza already thinking you have to compensate later, because you're going to maybe be dreading that next meal, or you're probably feeling guilty for what you ate and you have to compensate for it. So a good relationship would look like, I love pizza. I'm going to eat some tonight. It's going to be awesome. I don't know what I'm going to eat tomorrow, but I'll face that tomorrow when it comes. I'll eat whatever sounds good then.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely agree. Do you think that people who are, I guess, athletes are at higher risk of having poor relationships with food?
I do and I don't. Part of me says I don't because I haven't particularly experienced that myself, and I don't work with way too many athletes. So are you talking about performance-based athletes?
Either performance-based, or even if you're just talking about, say, people doing bodybuilding competitions as well.
Okay. So bodybuilding, yes, I think you're definitely more at a risk for that, because it is solely based on how you look. And there's a lot of pressure because how you eat determines how you look.
Yeah.
Like, period. Like, how you eat determines how you look. And some bodies, they metabolize food super quickly, and some people metabolize food slower. Depends on how you were raised, how you ate as a child. All these different factors come into play that really are not in your control. But if you're going out there for a aesthetic-based result, performance, or whatever, then you're going to feel much more pressure and stress on yourself to stick to a certain routine. And that requires you to let go of your intuition. And I think that that's the dangerous place, is when you no longer use your intuition to know how to eat or move. I think from my experience, men have an easier time balancing something like bodybuilding with food, just because the way your hormones are, the way you, I don't know, you guys are a mystery to me. But, and it's not the case for everyone. So yeah. I definitely know a lot of men do struggle with body image, and they get into bodybuilding and it gets worse, and their relationship with food goes down the drain. They start purging. Like, I've seen that, and it's so sad and so hard. And in my experience, most women experience that. With men, it could be like half and half. Maybe some are fine and they can get right back on track with intuitive eating, enjoying eating whatever they want to eat when they want to eat it. Some others don't. But for women, a lot of women struggle through most of that process, just seeing food and starting to fear food. And if you're doing a aesthetic-based competition, then there's going to be a higher risk of getting an eating disorder, especially orthorexia, when you're just obsessed with healthy eating.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about performance-based athletics, because I know for a fact that is very common too, to become super obsessed with eating the cleanest of foods, the healthiest foods, so you can have the best performance in your run, your triathlon. But since it is more performance-focused and driven, instead of just how your body looks, there's more focus particularly on probably the fitness aspect instead of just the food.
Yeah, awesome. How would you define orthorexia?
Orthorexia is an obsession with what one considers to be healthy eating or pure eating. And the key point of that is what one considers to be. So for one person, it could be anything in smoothie form. That is the healthiest thing ever, and that's all they can eat. For another person, for me, it was a little bit more on the, and I'm sure you can relate from the bodybuilding background, but for me it was more of how in control am I of my macros, and how much sodium I'm consuming, and how much sugar I'm consuming, what time I'm consuming these things, making sure it's every few hours. Like, I was more about the structure, the rigidity, and I wasn't quite as focused about the quality of foods. And for most people, orthorexia is more about like, can I get non-GMO, local, vegan, this, that, like all these little boxes need to be checked off for the purity of their foods.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Um, in terms of intuitive eating, why is that important? You were mentioning that before.
Yeah, so intuitive eating is basically eating what your body is craving in any particular moment. The other part of the rule that I don't like about intuitive eating, but it is important to mention, is that you eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full. I think that's a great principle. I think it's great when your body can do that, but I don't want people to put all this pressure on themselves to figure that out, because even normal eaters have a hard time knowing when to stop when they are completely full. So if you're just starting this journey of intuitive eating, maybe you're branching away from having a strict meal plan, and you want to like get out of that mindset, first of all, pick up that book, because there's a book called Intuitive Eating and it's amazing. Second of all, I would throw that rule out the window that you have to just stop when you're full and only eat when you're hungry, because Earth days, sometimes you eat a piece of cake just because you want it and it's there and it's delicious. Maybe you're not super hungry, but you can still allow yourself to eat it. And finding that place to stop when you're full, that is very hard. Many of us are still trying to find that place because it takes a lot of tuning into your body to know when you're really done eating, especially if you still have food on your plate. So that process takes a while. The main part of intuitive eating I want people to take away is to eat what sounds good in the moment. Instead of going into breakfast knowing, okay, I'm going to have eggs, oatmeal, and berries, say, I don't know what I'm going to have. Like, I'll wait in the morning till the morning, and then I'll find out. In the morning you wake up, surprise, you want banana pancakes. Allow yourself to have it. Allow yourself to make it. Enjoy the process of making it. Slow down. Eat it. Enjoy it. Really try your best to tap into when you are full. No pressure, no stress. But when you feel like you've reached that level of being done, whether if it's before you finish all the food or after, then you move on. You move on with your day. You've got more to do. You don't dwell on the food. You don't feel guilty about the food. You don't focus all about the food. You move on to the next thing. And I love intuitive eating, and I think it's something everyone should definitely check out.
Okay, awesome. In terms of that, do you think it's important for people to know when they are hungry and when they're just using food as a stress release, if they're stressed from any other part of their life, or they're just bored or something and they're just eating to be able to fill up that kind of void?
Yes, I think it depends on what background someone comes from. If someone comes from a background where they've never allowed themselves to enjoy food in front of the TV because they're so strict and they only have these certain set hours, and they have never used food for emotions and they use other things, sometimes that can be therapeutic. That can be helpful. Sometimes it's nice to be able to sit down and like watch a show and have some wine and eat some popcorn with your partner because you're just enjoying each other's company. So there's times and places for that. But if you're numbing your emotions and you feel like you are so stressed and fearful of your job and you don't know what's going to happen, and you start using food to cope with it, that's virtually the same thing as what I was doing as using control to cope with my stress and my fear. For some people, they eat the food to feel better. For some people, they restrict the food to feel better. But it's the same exact reasoning. We all do those same actions for the same reason. So there's not much difference. There's a problem with both of them. You don't want to restrict your food to feel more in control. You don't want to eat nothing but food to feel in control. So being mindful about it, I think when it comes to that, and if you're someone who's trying to figure out that in your life, you want to seek guidance, you want to seek counseling, you want to get help, you want to reduce the amount of triggers you have in your life. If you feel triggered by certain Instagram accounts or people in your life, you want to back away from that. There are tons of different things you can do to learn how to cope instead of using food. And journaling is also a great practice. When you feel those moments of like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed, I just really want a candy bar because it'll make me feel better. Take some time to journal, write things out, how you're feeling, and be with those feelings. Because food, for the people that come from that background, they use food so they don't have to be with their feelings. They don't want to be with them. They don't want to see them. Get away from me. But if you actually face it and you see it and you write it down and you're with it, like only you in that thought, in that journal, it becomes way less scary. Like that thing that you feared for so long becomes so much less scary. You're with it. And maybe the food craving passes. Maybe it's still there. Maybe you actually are hungry. Like, it could be different reasons, but there are so many other ways to cope in your life besides restriction and binging. And they're out there and they're waiting for you. You just have to start practicing different things slowly. But the more you practice it, the more those things will become your go-to things instead of just the food.
Yeah, okay. Do you find that social media has a negative impact on people with potential eating disorders because they're always seeing people with the perfect body put out there, photoshopped images, everything like that, especially, say, Instagram?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I that's one of the first things I have people do that I work with, or just people that listen to my show. I recommend everyone should do this, is just do a big purge on all your social media. Go through it. Look at accounts that aren't serving you anymore. If there's some person out there that's like a raw till four, whatever that diet is, and you look at their food and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish I ate 10 bananas in a day. Why does she get to look so perfect and only eat 10 bananas? And like, then she gets to eat this and that. And like, I want to look that way. I want her boyfriend. I want her body. Like, go click that little green bar that says unfollow and never have that account in your life again, because obviously it's not serving you. It's making you wish you looked like this person or have this person's stuff. If there's any account out there, I don't care what it is, a mommy account, a dating account, a software account, I don't know. Whatever it is that you look at and makes you feel less than, you do not need that on there anymore. And I recommend people do that often. Like, sometimes I may just be having a bad body image day and I'll be on Instagram and Instagram will recommend an account to me. And it happens to be a paleo chef, and I'm like, okay, I'll follow them. And then I start noticing they start posting a lot of pictures of their bodies, and I want to have that body. And then I realize, oh, I need to do another clean out, because that can easily happen, like depending on what day you start following people, but they're not really serving you and they sneak on in there on your feed. So doing purges often is so helpful, and that's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. Like, the eyes are the lamp of the body. So what you're absorbing with your eyes, you're going to be remembering. You're going to carry that throughout your day with you. So it makes a much bigger impact than you probably think, because you may think, oh, yeah, it's just Instagram. It's not a big deal. Not true. That stuff sticks with you. You see those images. You see hundreds of different images in a day, and you want that, and you feel sad because you don't have that. It can happen so easily. So, just pad up your space. Like, make it safe. Make it safe for you to have this transition if you want to become less, I don't know what the word would be, but if you're trying to not compare yourself as much to people, become more in one with your own skin. I think that's a huge thing that everyone should do.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that's definitely one of the issues, especially with the bodybuilding kind of industry, because you are compared on stage to other people, and it's based on someone's judgment on that day or how you looked that day. So there's a high risk of people becoming a lot more obsessive about it. So generally what I try and do is, especially with a lot of my clients, is just make sure that, that's the one time that you compare to other people. Beforehand, you're never comparing to anyone but yourself, and it's all about improving yourself and moving towards their goals they're looking to achieve. You gave a couple of good tips, so purging your social media, journaling. What are some other tips that you give to people who are looking at overcoming either eating disorders or even orthorexia?
I would say one thing that's particularly helpful is to share it with people, because sharing releases shame. So right now, if you're holding inside that you have an eating disorder or just disordered eating, and you just have poor body image, or maybe it's even less than that, maybe you just have some negative thoughts here and there that are bothering you, sharing releases shame. Sharing with a friend, sharing with a coach, sharing with a blog, sharing with whoever, but getting that out there, putting it even in your journal, because that's sharing. If you just have a journal, you write down, I feel like crap, blah, blah, blah. Like, writing how you're feeling. Get that out, because you're going to feel like you're holding on to this shame way, way less. Because shame is an emotion we all have. We'll never not have it. It will always happen. Just like happiness, joy, sadness, grief. Well, we can never get rid of those core emotions. But how you handle shame and how much you let it control what's going on in your life, that's up to you. So if you don't want shame to control you, just like you don't want grief to control you, you have to take actions. So letting it out, release it. That's one thing I would say. Another thing would be to express gratitude more on a day-to-day basis, like being grateful for what you do have, that you do have a stomach that can digest food. You do have the ability to move your body or eat delicious foods or have a family to run to when you need help, or you have a roof over your head. There's so many things that are just amazing in your life. I don't care what you don't have, what you do have. You're still on this planet Earth. That's amazing in itself. And when you come from this place of lack, of just I'm lacking that body, I'm lacking that diet, I'm lacking more control, I'm lacking all these things, you start thinking in lack terms more and more and more, and you start noticing what you're lacking in your life way more than you notice what you have in your life. So starting with one thing every day. So after you release shame in your journal by writing things down, write down something you're grateful for. Like today I'm grateful for, just write one thing. And do that every day. Like just write one thing you're grateful for every day. And I guarantee that the more you do this practice, the more you'll realize throughout the day that you are grateful for little things on a daily basis and you notice it. Maybe you're taking a walk and you're like, wow, I'm so grateful for this beautiful day. I'm so grateful for my dog's health. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm in school right now and I'm getting an education, something so many people can't get. So practicing gratitude, very important, something that I don't think is stressed enough in our daily basis, because we're just, media is constantly telling us we don't have enough, we don't look enough, we need to buy more, and they will always do that. The media will always do that. So it's a gift to be able to call out that BS and know you do have enough, and to be grateful for what you do have, and to feel free to be content with that, to be content with what you have. Like, it is okay to be content and to be happy with where you are right now and what you have. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you're not as driven as other people. It just means you see the world for what it is. You see what you have as beautiful. You know that you're worthy. You know that you're beautiful. And I'm kind of going on a tangent, but yeah, those are two of the things that I would definitely recommend people just try to get started with today. And they're really easy. It's really easy to do. Everyone has pen and paper laying around somewhere.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great suggestion. If someone is unhealthily underweight, what's the first thing that you'd get them to do to be able to get back to kind of a healthy weight range?
I think it depends. It depends on why they're underweight. If they're, just to kind of go along with the theme of this podcast, if they're underweight for reasons of feeling not enough and feeling like they need to be underweight, then I would first target the mind, and I would ask them what's going on. Either I would ask them this, or I would have them go to a professional, like a doctor, or go to an eating disorder clinic, anywhere they can talk with someone and get help, but they need to figure out what's going on in their mind. What are they trying to control? What are they afraid of? What beliefs are you holding on to? Are you holding on to the belief that thin means worthy? Thin means in control of your life? Did something happen when you were younger that traumatized you, that made you hold on to restricting food to feel better about yourself? So many different, with the people I've worked with, I've heard so many different stories of just different events of things that have happened in people's lives that have stuck with them. And it could be as simple as a little girl grabbing onto their family cat's tail too hard, getting yelled at by their dad saying, "You're an idiot, don't do that." And then from there, even as it has nothing to do with food, it just has to do with like, oh, dad thinks I'm an idiot, I messed up. And then trying to later fix how men see you by changing your body and being thinner, thinking like, well, I'm not smart, so I should make my body look good. Like, little hidden things happen along the way in our lives. So it's definitely about having this conversation and figuring out what's going on. Why do you believe this way? And that's more of the psychological standpoint. From a physical standpoint, that comes with time. You can't just force someone to eat, when they're not ready. Yeah. So facing food fears slowly, definitely a must-do. Just being able to try different foods, have these foods with loved ones, with people you care about, releasing that shame, like I said. And the weight will take care of itself. And, as long as you're doing these things, But I really honestly think this is mostly a problem of the mind. And when you can get that mind under control and when you can start thinking differently about yourself, about your body, about how safe you really are on this planet, then food becomes less of a go-to coping mechanism. You stop using food for everything, stop restricting to feel better. You start doing art because you do feel good, because you do love yourself. You start like moving your body in ways you really enjoy because you do love yourself. So those are the new ways that you cope with the stresses of life.
Yeah, awesome. Totally agree with that. It's always starts with, I guess, the thinking behind it rather than just the actual actions. They're basically deciding to do those actions to get to that point where they're underweight because of some underlying belief that they have behind that as well. So I totally agree with that. What are some, I guess, good activities that you recommend? You talked about art and things like that are non-exercise based and kind of food based exercises or hobbies that you can get people to do to be able to get their mind off that.
Well, I'll go back to say that one again, the art. Like, I really do think art is very helpful, especially now with all these like adult coloring books. It can be very meditative. Yeah. So if people want to, do you ever do that?
Yeah, I just bought a coloring book last week and tried it. Yeah, it's different. Really? It's good. I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So those are super helpful. And like, if you want, you can just sit there and be just with the coloring book, just you and the coloring book. You can listen to a podcast. You can listen to music. I think another great thing is meeting or just like getting out more. I think when you're used to saying no to a lot of things out of fear for, is there going to be food there, or I can't get off my meal plan, or like, are they going to be drinking? Like, you start to say no to a lot of things when you're in that very strict lifestyle. So starting to say yes to things. So when people ask you out to go dancing or to go to a bar or go get dinner, just say yes. Like, it's going to be worth your time. Like, it's going to be worth it. I know I used to always think like, but will the calories of that meal be worth it? Is it worth going out and doing that? It's worth it. It always is, because I meet people, I have fun, I'm out, I'm living my life. I'm not hiding inside with my special little food, my special little body. Like, I'm out there and I'm living and I'm enjoying. So training that yes muscle and saying yes to things, very helpful. And I know you said not exercise related, and I don't really consider this, it's just movement. I don't really consider exercise anymore at all. I just think of movement. And I'd say dancing, because dancing is very expressive. It can make you feel very beautiful. It can just be a fun way to let loose and be vulnerable. And that can be challenging for people, including myself. Dancing has always been something I've been very hesitant to do, because it really just is like, this is me. I know I look silly, but oh well, I'm just going to dance anyways. So being able to do that for me was really fun, to let that side of me come out. And I think for a lot of people, dancing can be very cathartic, very healing. Different types of dancing. There's pole dancing, which can be really fun if you go to have a studio nearby. There are tons of just like tribal dancing groups, or ballroom dancing, or salsa dancing, swing dancing. Like, there is something for everybody. And whatever it is you're into, you can go find something and enjoy that. So yeah, I would say that.
Okay, cool. Do you recommend that you get people to do, so you talked about colouring and meditation, do you get them to actually meditate as well?
I do. I definitely try, because I can tell when there are people that need it. When I work with someone who's just like got this crazy busy schedule and they're always so stressed about getting their workouts in and every single day, and everything's got to be organized to a T, and they're always anxious about the future, especially that last one. With them, I recommend meditation. And I try to get them to just like go on YouTube, find a 7-minute meditation, or download an app. Just do something simple and easy. Lay in your bed, like, be comfortable, and just try it out. Like, try it once. And for some people, it's like, yes, that worked, that felt good. For many people, they decide early on, no, I can't do this, isn't for me, I can't slow down. But I think that when that is your reason, you need it the most. You need that meditation the most. I think it's very helpful, and it's something that I wish I did more. But I do consider my walks to be meditation for me, and yoga is pretty meditative as well. So if you can at least find something that puts you in that that place. You don't always have to just like lay in your back and listen to a meditative track, but if you can find something similar that puts you in that place mentally where you leave and you feel calm, collected, okay, you feel at peace, basically the same thing. So I do think it's important for everyone to have something like that in their life.
Yeah, totally agree. Definitely think it helps with those people that that are that kind of massively stressed as well. What do you think is, I guess, the point where it does become extreme with, say, like orthorexia? So obviously, if people are doing bodybuilding or even kind of any athletic sport where they have to have the right kind of nutrition, where do you think it crosses that line between being healthy for the goal that they're working towards to going into obsessive?
Mm-hmm. So I think that if you're someone that's in this position and you're thinking, I wonder if this is me, do you have anxiety about future meals? Are you stressed all the time about perfection with your food? Are you stressed about perfection with your workouts? Is your happiness determined by how on point you are with your diet, how on point you are with your body fat percentage, your goals? Like, why are you doing this? Like, I keep going back to the question, but why are you doing this? Like, are you doing this to please people? Are you doing this to finally feel like enough? If it's any of those reasons, no, that's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for you. Are you doing this because you feel like you have to do this in order to be X, Y, and Z, to be beautiful, to be smart, to be funny, to be appreciated, to be loved? No, that is not a healthy place to be. With food, like I was saying, if you're feeling anxious beforehand of going into a meal, when you look at your plate, do you see, oh, that's 35 grams of protein, that's 5 grams of fat, that's 40 grams of carbohydrates, or do you see a nourishing meal? Like, what are your viewpoints? Not exactly saying that if you see that just an equation when you look at your plate that you have an eating disorder, but that might not be the healthiest place to be either. When you look at your plate, you want to be able to feel connected with your food. You want to feel excited to eat. You don't just want to see an equation because, food is not an equation. It's not supposed to be hard work, a chore. So if you're feeling like your happiness is based off of how good you were with your diet, how on track you were, you're going down that very dangerous path. And of course, if you're shedding tears about your food, if you're stressed, if you're breaking down crying because you're like, I'm not enough, I can't do this anymore. I wish that I could be free with food, but I can't. They can be like that, but I can't be like that. Those are all huge warning signs, obviously with the last one, but it's a healthier relationship when you don't see food as good or bad, first of all, because all food is equal. Food is just food. It's not good. It's not bad. Your morality should never be mixed up with how you eat. You are not a good person if you eat in a way that you think is good. You are not a bad person if you eat in a way that you think is bad. So getting rid of that mindset, if you have that mindset right now, it's another warning sign because food is not supposed to be like that. And it's hard to keep level-headed about food when every magazine says this food is bad, this food is good, this food is bad, do not eat this food, this has way too much crap in it. You can eat this one, but not this one. Like, of course you're going to start creating some food fears, and you're going to be nervous when you approach your plate. But there's a whole community out there of body-positive people, body acceptance, food freedom, food neutrality. Like, enter that world. Find that world, and that's a great place to be, especially in the virtual world, because there's a whole community of these people with podcasts, with books, with blogs, and they can help teach you how to be neutral with food, how to stop mixing up your morality with food, because that's hard to do. That's super hard to do because we do live in this world that tells you need to do that to be special or to be known or to be admired. You need to do these things. But that is not the equation for a happy life. A happy life is just about eating and moving in a way that feels good, yes, but being on this earth for a reason bigger than your food and your fitness, something huge, something beyond you that you can live for, that you can contribute to.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely agree. Who are some of the, podcasters or YouTubers or people you would recommend, people that are working through eating disorders or orthorexia to follow to be able to help them through that process?
So I would say, in regards to YouTube, I would say people should check out this girl Audra. She also has an Instagram. It's this girl Audra. She's awesome. I love her. and she knows a lot about getting her period back and hormones and just eating more food again. Next, I would say Isabel Fox and Duke. She has a great blog, and she doesn't have a podcast, but she is on podcast. She's on mine once or twice, I think twice. So check out her. I would say for podcasts, Fearless Rebel Radio by Summer Innanen, Finding Our Hunger by Kyla Prinz, The Recovery Warrior Show, which is all about recovery with food. I would also recommend people check out the Fuck It Diet. That is a website, and also she just made a podcast. Very awesome girl. The Fuck It Diet's like just the best. I love her to death. And for people that are just starting to eat more and they're coming from a low calorie place, I would say to check out Matt Stone. He wrote 2 books, one called Eat for Heat and the other one called Diet Recovery. So I'd recommend those 2. It's great books. I mean, they're kind of extreme, but they have just tons of great knowledge in them, and they were very helpful for me when I was first starting to eat more food and eat different food.
Yeah, okay. What do you think it is important for people to, I guess, take into account even when listening to those podcasts or following those people, if they're not necessarily at the point where they're willing to make a change, they're still looking for, I guess, ways to be more in control like you were previously? What do you think it's important for them to be able to do, to be able to, I guess, take that first step towards moving to, I guess, overcoming that issue?
Yeah, great question. Even just what you said, that's one thing they should take into account is like everyone's journey is different. Like my journey, if people come over and listen to my story, it may be so different from what they need to do. Like totally different. And that is absolutely fine, because your story, whoever's listening, when you go through this process, your story is then going to have a ripple effect and help someone else. It's going to relate more to someone else than my story ever could. So don't be afraid to like do things the way you feel like you need to do. And if you're not ready and you're not ready for these changes, that's so fine. What you're doing right now by listening to this podcast is a great step. And then you can go listen to another podcast, maybe one of the ones that I recommended, or read a blog or watch a YouTube video. You don't have to take any action besides doing that. But for right now, if you just want to start absorbing information and hearing more about the journeys of other people and potential steps you could take, that is fine. Take your time. Take your time absorbing this information and just kind of surrounding yourself with these people and these influencers. And if I could tell anyone to do at least one thing right now, that would be to get rid of the scale. I would say that does not need it. That is not needed in your life. If anything, it's just looming around, it's haunting you, and it's making you feel like you're a good person if you lost a particular amount of weight, or maybe a bad person if you didn't. And neither one of those outcomes are good, because you never want to feel better about yourself because of your weight, and you never want to feel bad about yourself because of your weight. So getting rid of your scale, I think that's one action everyone can do. It's not eating different foods, it's not as scary as a lot of other things, but getting that scale out of there, and then after that, you can start listening to what these people say on these shows or in their videos or books, and start to try them out. Try out the different things that they say, one thing at a time, intuitively. When you feel like you're ready, you want to be uncomfortable, but you want to be safe at the same time. So that's the goal, uncomfortable but safe. You want to still be in a place where you don't feel like your head is way underwater and like you're being thrown into something, because this is definitely a process. And for me, it's been now 2.5 years since my last show. So I've been down this road for a while, and I'm still learning things every day.
Yeah, awesome. How do you help people understand that it's a long process to be able to overcome this, rather than just it happening instantly and then going from basically a completely unhealthy relationship with food to having a great relationship with food? How do you kind of highlight that that's going to be a long process to people?
I first just have to tell them, like, don't freak out when it doesn't happen overnight, because it won't. And I, particularly with the people I work with, I have to remind them often, because I can notice that when they start working with me, they're like, oh, I'm trying intuitive eating and it's okay, but I ate past the point of fullness, and then I wanted a snack a couple hours later, and I shouldn't have eaten again because I probably wasn't really hungry, and I'm just mad at myself because I'm failing at intuitive eating. And I'm like, slow down, like, wait a minute. Intuitive eating should not be another diet. should not be another set of rules. It's intuitive. There are no rules. There shouldn't be any guidelines, which is why at the beginning of this I mentioned the whole hunger fullness thing, thrown out the window. But when people get ahead of themselves and they can easily start to compare their journey with others, and they can start saying to themselves, they need to be at this certain place by this certain date, they need to be better, they need to like have their food under control by the time they have their first kid, or they need to do this. Well, you're not in control of it. Sorry, but it's not up to you to decide when you're mostly healed from this stuff. And there, let me also say, there is never a there yet point. Like, if you want to be like where I am, well, hello, I'm still not totally figured out. Like, I still don't have all this stuff under control. I never will. I'll just be learning for the rest of my life. So I still have bad body image days. I still have weird food days. I still have days where I look at my food and I'm like, this is not healthy. I can't believe me. But then I just remember how to snap out of it quicker. Then I'm like, what the heck? Like, that's silly. Food is just food. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I'm going to move on. So that is kind of where people should be focused on. That North Star is to be guided towards the place of just being neutral towards food. But it is a long process, and it takes plenty of time. And it should be, I wouldn't say necessarily fun. It won't be like the most fun process, but it should be explorative, and you should be curious. And eventually it becomes fun because you're like, this is awesome. I have food freedom. I have like movement freedom. I'm living intuitively. I'm dating who I want. I'm saying no to things left and right. I'm saying yes to things left and right. Like, I'm being true to myself. And that's a great place to be. But you have to train all of those muscles. You have to train the food freedom muscle, the movement muscle, the intuitive living muscle, saying no to what is no longer serving you muscle, saying yes to what you want to finally try out muscle. So it takes time, and I mean, it could take a long time for you to feel really comfortable on this journey, but it also could take a short amount of time. Like, we don't know. You just have to go out and try it and see.
Yeah, awesome. Totally agree. Can you go into a little bit more, I guess, about some of the times where you fall back into old habits about that, just so people can kind of, I guess, understand that it's never going to be perfect. It's just kind of making sure that you're moving away from that wherever possible.
Yeah, so some days I can just put on an outfit and I don't like the way it looks on me, and it'll set me off for the rest of the day, and I'll think, oh, I look puffy. But what that really means, I look puffy, that means I feel insecure. And that's all it means. If you ever have a day where you say, I'm having a fat day, it means you feel insecure. I feel insecure. And not only is that insulting, because fat people can be healthy as well. Fat people can be just as happy, if not happier. They can plenty of movement in their lives. And saying I'm having a fat day is insulting, and it's just rude. And it's rude to yourself. It's rude to yourself because you're telling yourself that you're not having a day that you can be confident in yourself because you look like you have more weight than you do. Like, it just doesn't make sense anymore now that I look back on it. But when I have those days where I do feel puffy, or I feel like just not my normal self, it's because I feel insecure. And then I have to ask myself, okay, why do I feel insecure? Okay, well, it's probably because I'm going through a breakup and I just feel like I'm in this in-between land. Or it's probably because I am stressed about this interview that's coming up soon for a podcast, well, whatever reason. But something is underlying there. Something's going on. And I identify it very quickly because I know myself. And I just say, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's what it is. And then I drop the whole clothing issue. I realize I came face to face with the fact that it's nothing to do with my body. It's nothing to do with the clothes. It's just a coping mechanism. It was just a strategy of trying to get my mind off of whatever is really bothering me and focus it on this. Then I remember that doesn't serve anyone. Focus back on the real issue. And then I drop the body stuff. And then I realize my body is here because it's amazing, it's powerful, it can do things. I'm going to use it today to its highest ability. And then that's that. So now when I have those moments of just frustration with my body or my food, I actually like dive in and I find out why in that moment. I don't really try to bury it because then it's still there. In fact, it's probably lifting weights and getting stronger. And then it's going to come and attack me later on in the day. But if I face it right then and I ask myself what's going on, then it has no more power. There's no shame. There's no power. And I've mastered it. So I move on. It's not to say I don't have those moments because I have them often. But now I just deal with it immediately and I face it and I don't run from it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's about all we've got time for today. You work specifically with people with, I guess, eating disorders and that, and I believe you have, is it an ebook that you have that people can actually start to develop strategies to be able to overcome that? Is that right?
Yes. So on my website, maddymoon.com, which is Maddy, maddymoon.com, I have a free book. It's called 10 Proven Steps for Ending Any Diet Obsession, and you can download that. I have my podcast called Mind Body Musings, which you can also find on my website or iTunes or Stitcher. And then I also have a book that I think may be interesting to your audience specifically. It's called Confessions of a Fitness Model.
Yeah.
And it talks specifically about what I had gone through in those days of competing with my relationships, with my body, with my food. Also how I worked out of that dangerous place and came to love my food, love my body, feel so much more free and happy where I am today. So that's also on my website.
Yeah, okay, cool. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Is it just via your website or on social media?
Yeah, so there's a contact page on my website, so people can just use that and it'll have an email sent directly to me. And I'm also on Instagram if people just want to follow me there. It's Madeline Moon, Madelyn Moon.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate always interviewing people who are actually making a difference and making that kind of positive impact and helping people overcome the issues that they're having around any kind of relationship that they have with health and fitness. So it's always good to basically interview people like you. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Awesome. Hey guys, thanks for watching Chasing Gains Radio. Obviously, we've got through a lot of content today, some alternative stuff to what we normally go through around training and nutrition. So if you're looking at having any specific topics covered, be sure to hit me up. Send me an email at cody@chasinggains.com for any topics you actually want covered. And be sure to share and like this podcast to be able to help share the Chasing Gains movement and actually help build it even more. Thanks again for listening, guys. We'll catch you next week.